So when we identify what is worth talking about, a couple things I really want you to focus on. First, what parts of the work would have the greatest impact on the target audience? I am not usually the target audience, neither are you. It's look at the time period, look at the room that it's given, or the magazine that it's published in, whatever it is. Just quickly identify who is the target audience and what do they believe. Then once you know what they would already believe, and obviously some background knowledge comes in here, that's what is worth writing about. Target audience. What would be most impactful, not to me and not to you, but to them? And then what writing trends do you see? What I mean by that is, what do you see throughout the essay or the speech? If you see a metaphor in line 1 and there's no other figurative language and it's not an extended metaphor, then it's probably not worth talking about, at least not in a whole body paragraph. You got to look at how it fits into the greater puzzle. So I said this is not a matching game. I cannot just sit there and say in my essay, the author used a metaphor. I have to look bigger picture than that. So that's what I'm going to help you with today. That is the number one tip that I have for you all. Figure out what is worth writing about. That is clearly what separates higher level advanced writers from the rest of the pack. In order to do that, I have to consider the work as a whole. I call them smaller strategies, like that metaphor that I just talked about. If there's a random metaphor in line 1, that's a smaller strategy. Sure, it was used intentionally, but it's not worth much time and thought in my essay unless I'm looking at the bigger picture. So consider how the smaller strategies that only appear once or twice, fit into the work as a whole. And this is something that we'll talk about towards the end of the year. Right now, I just want you focusing on high-level intros next week, high-level body paragraphs for weeks after that before we move on to rhetorical analysis. But if you feel ready, I'm throwing this out at you. The best analysis often considers how the author deliberately begins and ends the work. Think about it. John F. Kennedy, I used him as an example, knows who his audience is. So he knows what they think about the subject. So he's deliberately starting with whatever he thinks that they need to hear, right? He can't just jump into whatever the hard-hitting message is if his audience would be resistant to that. So he has to build some kind of relationship with them first. It's whatever it is. It's hard to talk about hypothetically, so we're going to go look at 5 practice rounds today very, very briefly, and I'll get into some more specifics. But again, the best analysis is going to shift. How does the author deliberately begin? What's the writing strategy that he or she uses? How does he or she move in the middle of the work? And then how does the writer end? That is going to set you apart from so many other students who simply list and match strategies. That is not at all the goal here. The goal is to say, put yourself in the audience's head. How do they think about the work, the subject? And then put yourself in the speaker's head. How does the speaker get the audience to move? Or at least, how does he or she know or get into the audience head like we're doing, and then use that to get them to move? Okay, so quick thing on organization. As we're talking about organizing our essays, I see this so many times when I go to the AP reading. And even at the beginning of the school year, I often see this with my students. Do not organize your body paragraphs by AP terminology. For example, you can't say allusion and afferent logos as your topic sentences. You're not going far enough with that. You can certainly talk about all these fancy terms as much as you want, but don't let those get in the way of the real thinking. Matching a term is like the lowest level thinking that you can do, besides defining the term, right? What I want you to do, what AP College Board wants you to do, is put those together. How are they actually all working together to get the audience on the side of the speaker? Do organize your body paragraphs by identifying the most important writing trends. So when we do some practice rounds today, when I say the writing trend, that really would be my topic sentence for a body paragraph. Again, I said we'll talk about this more later in the year, but I'm not going to focus on this today, how the author begins and ends, but that is something to consider if you feel like you're ready to take that leap in class. We'll definitely get there later on in the year, once you have a lot of practice under your belt with writing at a high level, analyzing at a high level, and focusing on writing what is worth talking about. What I do with my students a lot is simply give my students a prompt, or it doesn't have to be an official prompt, just a reading, and say, okay, what's worth talking about here? What are the big writing trends? So you don't have to only practice this when you write a timed essay. Every time you see a text, you can be thinking, okay, what are the most important things that the writer is doing to get the audience on his or her side? That's the biggest skill that it takes time. That's why I said there's no secret sauce. It just takes time to get better and better at identifying these things. And then obviously, the next couple of weeks, translating them into writing. All right, here is another quick practical tip. Write the writing trend. And this is actually pretty helpful to think about. Write the writing trend so it only applies to the work that you are analyzing. Virtually all writers use pathos, diction, etc. So if all you say is Martin Luther King uses pathos, I'm going to say, yeah, so does everybody else that I read, right? Martin Luther King uses diction. In fact, in my class, I throw it the opposite. Let's say we're analyzing John F. Kennedy, and a student tells me, yeah, he uses strong diction. I would say, yeah, so does Martin Luther King. If I can say, yeah, so does Martin Luther King, and I have a dream or whatever, I'm not looking at the writing trend enough. I'm stopping too short. So write the writing trend so it only applies to the work you are analyzing. Now, you can talk about strong diction and emotional appeal and all of that under that body paragraph, and I'll show you how to do that in the next couple weeks. Today, we'll just kind of look at how do I know what's worth analyzing.